A similar scenario surprised Japanese seismologists at Fukushima. But the owners of Diablo Canyon, Pacific Gas and Electric, say there's nothing to worry about. They say Hartebeck's analysis is flawed and the plant can operate safely for years.
Having now completed a very rigorous and thorough feasibility study, I'm both pleased and excited to announce we are officially beginning the process to seek license renewal for the Diablo Canyon facility.
I could not understand why the utility was racing to relicense before the seismic information came forward. It was almost as though they were afraid of what they would find.
In the wake of the Japanese disaster, Blakesley called for hearings and confronted an NRC official.
And we're now in a situation where we have information about a shoreline fault, a new fault in my district, next to my constituents, and you're telling me you're just going to continue business as usual and not delay to get the information before you do your site safety review. And that's unacceptable.
The shoreline fault is well below the ground acceleration that the plan is designed to.
How do you know that?
Based on the scientific studies that have been performed to date.
By whom?
There was a number of folks that were involved with that. PG&E was a party to that. We expect licensees to do those studies.
But relying on information from licensees to determine if a plant is safe may put the public at risk. These PG&E documents, obtained by the Center for Investigative Reporting, reveal that despite their public claims of safety, PG&E's own seismologists have considered the implications of a magnitude 7.2 earthquake along the shoreline fault. This graph shows the ensuing shaking could exceed what the plant is designed to withstand.
The problem is, with the magnitude 7.2, you're getting perilously close to the limits of the facility.
But in its formal report to the NRC, PG&E sent another graph, this one showing no seismic concerns. They told the NRC that because the shoreline fault is segmented, it can't rupture with nearby faults, and therefore a larger earthquake at the plant is impossible. Hartebeck says that way of thinking doesn't add up.
The data I'm looking at, it actually doesn't make sense. The earthquakes along the shoreline fault and very clearly go all the way to the Hosgray fault.
PG&E declined our request for an interview, but in a written statement said, Diablo Canyon was designed and constructed with seismic safety in mind, and components of the facility were tested to withstand probable ground motions resulting from nearby faults.
We should be asking the question, why isn't that work being done by other seismic organizations which have no direct financial interest or benefit in how or when that data is viewed, reviewed, and interpreted? One of the reasons there isn't that kind of rigorous third-party independent oversight is because the NRC doesn't ask it, doesn't demand it, doesn't seek it.
PG&E isn't the only company that has an incentive to minimize earthquake risks. While the industry claims that all its plants are seismically safe, the NRC has recently acknowledged that at least 27 reactors in the U.S. have a known earthquake hazard that is greater than the plant is designed to withstand.
Did you know that the Indian Point Energy Center helps power everything you see here and here and here?
You might be surprised to know that the plant that tops the list is Indian Point, just outside New York City.
Indian Point provides about a quarter of the electricity for New York City and Westchester.
The plant's owner, Entergy, has turned to former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani as a paid spokesman because Indian Point has some powerful opponents in New York.
My position has been for a long time that the plant is risky and the plant should not operate.
Governor Cuomo vigorously opposes Indian Point's relicensing. His administration has sued the NRC, alleging the agency is not enforcing its own safety regulations.
There is a growing recognition, not just among crazies who wear headbands and play bongs, but a large body of conventional people, like elected officials in states, who are beginning to get nervous about the adequacy of nuclear power to be run safely in this country. Not whether it could be, but whether it will be.
We took a boat ride to within a few hundred yards of the plant with attorney Philip Musagas from the environmental group Riverkeeper, which has been working with Governor Cuomo to fight the relicensing of Indian Point.
What we're looking at The two big oval top domes that you see are the two nuclear reactors. Each reactor takes in about 1.2 billion gallons of water a day. One of the things we learned right off the bat, which amazed us, was that the relicensing process, we are not allowed to raise concerns about risks of the spent fuel pools that hold all the nuclear waste. We're not allowed to raise concerns about the emergency evacuation plan. We're not allowed to raise concerns about terrorism or security.
Terrorism is a real concern. The 9/11 Commission found that one of the hijackers, Mohammed Atta, considered targeting a nuclear plant near New York City, believed to be Indian Point. City officials ordered a review of evacuation plans. Barry Scanlon, a former official in the Federal Emergency Management Agency, helped write the review.
We found that the plant's plans and evacuation plans and preparedness plans were not adequate to prevent an unacceptable dose of radiation affecting people should there be an event. What we got was people being incredulous that they can't get over the bridge on a rainy day, never mind if there was an evacuation for a nuclear event.
If a serious accident were to happen at Indian Point, this is where New York City would handle the crisis.
Every hazard that you could imagine or that we could imagine, we have plans for.
Kelly McKinney is New York City's Deputy Commissioner for Planning and Preparedness.
So this is it. This is the Emergency Operations Center. So here's Amtrak. Here is New Jersey Transit. Here's Metro North Railroad.
New York City relies on the NRC's guidelines for evacuation planning should there ever be a serious incident at Indian Point. Those guidelines say only a 10-mile evacuation zone is necessary.
If we had a plume of radioactive material directed that was headed toward New York City, it's highly probable that the Health Commission would say, get into your homes and close the windows and close the doors, and because as we understand it, those levels are going to drop dramatically very quickly.
Philip Musagas says that idea is a fantasy.
In Japan, the radioactive plumes and radioactive fallout extended well beyond 12 miles. There are areas, there are villages in Japan now 30, 40, 50 miles away, 60 miles away from the reactors that will most likely be permanently uninhabitable because of the radioactive fallout.
Entergy declined our request for an interview, but in a statement said, the company has demonstrated the plant can operate safely for an additional 20 years, and we expect to receive license renewal.
I can't comment specifically on Indian Point, but in general, I can just say that our decisions about what is fundamental for safety are not based on considerations of cost. And that's a very clear mandate that we have through our legislation that established the agency. We make decisions about what we think is important for safety.
But increasingly, some states are pushing back on the NRC, questioning the agency's decisions. Back in Vermont, the state launched an unprecedented fight to reverse the NRC's relicensing decision. The state Senate voted overwhelmingly to shut the plant down.
No question the nuclear power industry, quite apart from Entergy, watching this case very carefully. No question that the federal government's watching it.
Entergy, which also owns Vermont Yankee, has sued the state for stepping on the NRC's safety turf.
It is a battle between a small state of 600,000 people and a huge government agency and a huge industry that makes billions of dollars every year.
In January, a federal court ruled in the company's favor, but Vermont's Attorney General says he intends to pursue an appeal. The case is expected to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Meanwhile, late last year in Washington, a bitter dispute among the agency's commissioners broke out in public congressional hearings.
Do you believe that employees have experienced anything that would be considered to be hostile or offensive by the chairman?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Infighting among the NRC's commissioners threatens to keep it from moving quickly on safety reforms after Fukushima.
And the American public rightly expects the NRC to redouble its efforts to ensure that our nuclear plants are the safest in the world. But that has not happened. We should be focusing on the work that you have to do, not petty politics and personal ambition.
This regulatory agency does not regulate effectively. And until it does, there is no way that the public can have any confidence that plants, whether they're licensed or relicensed, won't have some catastrophic event. No one will benefit from a post-catastrophic event hand-wringing that says, oh, we should have done this and we'll do this better next time. The consequences are unimaginable.